Go to the cloud. All right. Hi, and welcome everyone to the next episode of the Keptn working group about auto-remediation. Well, yeah, last time I was a little bit lost in the sense that I was not alone. Some folks from Dynatrace joined in, and we had then a little bit more discussions about how Dynatrace and Keptn can work together on doing auto-remediation. But we did not make any progress on what we have agreed on the last time, because yeah, Mark, Jürgen, and I, we sat together. It was the not yeah 2 meetings before, and we said that we as a working group, yeah, we want to have a framework or a model that builds on top of the mind map that we defined at the beginning, and this model or this framework should be, yeah, the working document now and the living document that we want to contribute to, so that we also then can produce an output. And yeah, this is also what I would like to continue working on today. I have here, yeah, highlighted the working document. It's the framework/model, and the agenda for today. Yeah, I have defined as follows. First, I will give you an update on how the document currently looks like. Technically, or basically, it's yeah, the mind map already defined how the document also is then structured, and I just added subsections, added a couple of sentences to each section to make clear what should be in there, and then we can go through the document. Last time Luis was joining in this meeting, and he also yeah, sent me then a link about best practices, or how he's doing remediations, or a checklist actually he is using when he's consulting customers. And I added this to the document. We can review it or talk about that. And then I would like to kind of distribute a little bit the work on the framework, on the model, in the sense of, let's assign someone to the different sections to take over responsibility and also to provide some content for the model itself. And this should be done by defining a session chair and also a person that is then reviewing this session. Yeah. And last but not least, we should then talk about the next meeting we want to have. All right. Any other points we should add to the agenda from your side?
I'm
No.
looking, I just got the document open. Go ahead, Kevin.
So I was just, thinking as you talked, and unfortunately I had to miss the last two, only being bi-weekly. I happened to have a work meeting I couldn't miss, and then I was on vacation last time. So, all of a sudden a month has gone by, and as you said, you didn't have much attendance the last time. And so as we divide these tasks between a chair and a reviewer, we've got two people outside of Dynatrace here, so I guess that gives us everything, Mark. Yeah, I'm just wondering if we need to somehow start recruiting or getting the message out to more people about this working group, and see if we can't get more input.
Yeah, I agree. We should do that.
All right, let's just add this on the top of the list.
I'm going to request, is it okay to request edit access on that?
Sure.
Yeah. I was thinking one thing on the theory part. Use cases is really generic. Let's put a little, I don't know that we can just call them use cases. And I like the idea that the use cases themselves are almost, if I actually put those three around theory in order, I think the idea of the use case, or the idea of what theoretically the ideas that we are suggesting, or we're pulling together as part of, hey, we have a theory about, if we really want to talk about theory, auto remediation. We have to understand remediation, and then we have to understand auto remediation as two slightly different overlapping things. So I'm wondering if it's like, if the use cases are a little bit more higher level, and
Hmm.
then we start getting into, hey, here are the known things about remediation process. There's a little background. So I might rework kind of the headline sections
Okay.
for the theory part, simply because, again, our kind of our mission, Kevin, I'm remembering correctly, is like we want to write something up, or we want to produce a document full of ideas that can go out. Anyone can pick it up and say, hey, if you're considering this thing called auto remediation, here's some history, here's a little bit of how remediation is generally done in a non-automated fashion. So I'm wondering, theory-wise, if there isn't also like historic use cases would be more specific, and maybe remediation processes. So remediation and then auto remediation as a theory, or you know what I mean, Johannes? It's like a little bit more conceptual section, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I was also thinking, or yeah, we are already in the topic. I was also thinking having a theory at the beginning where we
Yeah,
kind of provide all the the data or all the information we already know or we should uh, collect, and
yeah.
based on that, we then go a little bit more into practice. And this is then could be the second, or should be the second part, where we talk about our prerequisites, then guidance how to set up a remediation process, how to test it, and so on. I think you can see and you can read it. But at the beginning, there should be a section talking about the theory first.
Yeah, and I wonder if
Yeah.
it isn't even a fourth headline, maybe even above use cases, that are saying like current context, or standard contexts for remediation. Obviously, there's mean time to remediation, or MTTR, that's been in operations for a very, very long time. And so there's some backbone metrics and things that we're sort of saying, let's set the stage. And maybe that's in terms of writing the document, maybe that's the introduction or the summary. But it'd be nice to have that theory part launch off from that. Like, this is auto remediation is different from traditional manual remediation in the following ways, conceptually. And I think we've
Got it.
already talked around, maybe not specifically said it, we've already talked around a little bit of all right, if I was doing this manually, you have to have this step, this step, this step. It's almost perceptibly fast in an automated remediation. So how do we make those three steps, not even seem like steps? They're replaced by a new process. So when you say remediation process, I think we actually are in the theory part, we're actually wanting to focus on auto remediation
Hmm.
process, and not call it just remediation.
True. Um, got
Okay,
it.
go ahead. That's just
Mhm.
thoughts, yeah.
I mean, we can or we should actually go quickly over the sections to get an understanding what was in the mind map and what is now in the document. Because
Yeah.
for use cases, I also consider this now a little bit more as intro into the topic, into the document. But what we had there was or basically the different levels where problems can occur. They can be on infrastructure level on the bottom, then on application level, and then also on business level, in the sense of an application is going down, and then your revenue is also impacted by that, but you wanna automatically remediate the problem. Those are kind of the business related ones.
I almost might want to say there's a customer level or an end user level. That's the next one. Like, there's business who's like, well, there's some users and customers that aren't necessarily our customers. And it's if people Like, let's say you have an app that's running and it's really, really slow for a bunch of people who are using the app for nefarious purposes. I'm I'm not going to remediate that. That's of course that should be crappy for them. We don't allow people to we don't, so there's certain things as a customer experience or an end user level that do I need to remediate? There may be decisions like this end user or this customer is in a class, generically, a class where remediation need or remediation timeliness is not high. The business might come back and say, there's a lot of money there though, so we override that. Who knows? Yeah. All right, cool.
I see your point. But just one question. At the end users or might be always impacted, or I mean, from all those
Sure.
three levels, at the end user is impacted by, and could it
Yeah.
be?
Yeah. But let's say I've got business objectives and the end users that are being impacted by something negative are not that important from a business perspective. Like we're still focused on doing and achieving X thing instead of generically, there's a subtle difference there. Oftentimes the business is like the customer is always right. And we know when you've got a million transactions happening for a given, huge application, you're like, some customers are not always right. Some customers are not high on the priority list. So that would be interesting if we're going to build a model where that logic is inclusive of businesses may make decisions that let's say I'm not a pay, I'm in the free tier versus a paid tier of a service. I might, I might be having a bad experience, but business wise, what's the remediation? Send the user an email. Hey, we're very sorry, but if you were to upgrade to the next level of service, looks like you need
Yeah.
more transactions or more business minutes or more whatever it is. Yeah, so I mean, the remediation still might be a reminder email that you're on the free tier, but you're starting to push into needing the other stuff. So yeah, all right,
Okay. Now I get the point. Thanks.
go ahead.
All right. Yeah, this kind of should be intro. Then the remediation process itself, or auto-remediation process itself, that one we divided into a couple of steps that we see as common and as those should be executed. Like, first of all, let's get the situation documented, then start the data gathering process, think about the remediation budget you currently have available, also consider dependencies that might impact your remediation that you're going to execute. Here I have two sub-elements added. Yeah, get an overview of all the
Mhm.
remediations that are currently active or are activated, and then have also the be aware of links between the remediation actions.
Awesome.
Then a sub-element is schedule the remediation action, because yeah, you have to postpone it or you want to fire it immediately. It depends. Execute it, and finally do the evaluation part. This is kind of the workflow or the process that we came up with. It's definitely not complete, or it might yeah, the tasks, they might have different granularity, but I think giving an idea of how this could look like is definitely great value. And then, Mark, yeah, last time you mentioned that it would be cool to have these kind of flowcharts that help someone to navigate through a problem and to figure out how to do certain things. I think you had a perfect picture in your mind. I just have it written down by one sentence, not more than that. But you brought up quite good ideas in this regard.
The one example, it's just visual, right? That pops in my head was from a very early SQL Server performance remediation, troubleshooting, diagnostics, profiling kind of flow chart, which at a very, very high level was make sure there's no locking, make sure there's no blocking, and then start tuning. Um, and don't do tuning and then find out you've been tuning things that are just making your locking or blocking worse. But it was sort of a logical diagram of getting the flow of your ideas, a flow chart. So if I can find that as an example, I can bring it in.
Cool. Great. Let me just add here a note that uh,
And it was from a long time ago, so I'll see. We'll see. But it was huge and it was cool. You know, and like you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not simple. But yeah, that's the idea. But it almost looks like it was a full poster we had on the wall
okay.
in the lab, and people would go through and be like, well, why are you doing this? Point at the poster.
The
See the
poster says.
third box down on the left? Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay. Yeah. Having here this flowchart or some visual that guides someone through our model will definitely help.
Cool.
Then now we are coming over. This would actually with the flowchart we stop at with the theory, and now we are going over to practice, to best practices. And first, it's I think needed to talk about or to write down the prerequisites that we see as necessary and should be fulfilled when we talk about remediation actions, because they can be, for example, built into an application. They can come from the infrastructure itself. I think there are different prerequisites that can or should be fulfilled, even though we don't know them yet.
Cool.
Then another section can or should.
Just
Mhm.
real quick. So I don't know, as I think about some of the stuff, I always have Dynatrace model in my head. And I'm wondering, under your prerequisites and some of the other stuff, if we shouldn't go down and say services instead of applications, or in addition to applications. Because a lot of this will be more probably at your service level than overall application level, possibly. So just kind of throw that in.
And obviously front end performance, if we really do think of an app as the UX, right? There would be remediations for, you know, bad browser configuration, bad JavaScript, bad, you know, there are things on the client, edge computing wise. So maybe, do you want to split that out?
Actually, I don't have an opinion on that. I mean,
You do.
I think it will be then up to the section chair or to the person who kind of leads this section or who want to drive it to define the prerequisites. But
I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's unique enough in the industry and different enough in terms of discipline and the target code or configuration changes that we should call it out. So maybe just make a little hint note there. Should we separate front end? It's a good question. As a comment or a note on the side too. Yeah.
should we separate front? Let's add a note.
And I think we know from the last 10 years, front end performance, especially in the web infrastructure, there's a whole lot of marketing there that's like, oh, this is just bad code. Oh, this is just, you know, unsupported on some browser version. We make a lot of hay about it from a developer perspective. But, you know, necessarily, the last velocity stuff that I tuned into was still how to be a better web developer. It wasn't necessarily all performance, auto remediation. It wasn't, you know, that. So I'm agreeing with Kevin on the services side. Especially think about our target for incubation in cloud native. A lot of it's going to be services.
True.
Yeah.
Even more important.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks,
This
Johannes. That's great.
ties a little bit into that one. Remediation
Yeah.
in a cloud native environment. Let me add that one here.
Yeah. Also thinking services wise could be serverless, you know, cloud-based functions, that kind of stuff. becomes a service. Is it an app? All right, fine. Groovy.
All right, cool. And then, yeah, after talking about the prerequisites, we should give the reader some hands-on guidance and best practices, meaning how can someone on the one hand apply the process and also do remediate, or how can someone apply the process that we came up with? Really take the person by the hand and tell them what to do or what to consider should be or could be part of that section.
Okay, yeah, I get it. I think it's setup might be translation. The setup guide to me is like do these 14 steps and your outcome is more of a permanent, like the setup guide, like an installation guide, instead of you're adopting a practice. Like this remediation then can be applied in with subtlety things like maybe in some application contexts or some types of issues, you'll go further in the flow chart or process, and in some you might not. So it's not so much like unless I'm missing the point. It's to me, it's the getting started with auto remediation.
Yeah.
And like
It's better.
how to adopt these ideas and turn them into changes in how you do your work. And then a setup guide would be, hey, here are some actual tools, instrumentation, observation framework, diagnostics, profile. Here are the different tools you need to implement along the path. And here are your, different ways. Oh, you might need it. You'll need a fork and a knife and a spoon and then a small fork. I never remember what that's for. Salad fork or I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and then the word setup, Johannes, just triggered me to think that getting started is different. Getting started with the ideas, and then we walk them through those checklists of saying, hey, here's a thing that's a good candidate for auto remediation because it's always growing, it's always changing, it's fairly standard. We always throw a little more like I'm in a situation now where we are always projecting when am I going to buy licenses for 4 more CPU SQL Server because my SQL Server engine is just growing and growing and growing the data size, and you're remediating it in a very repeated way. So they're good candidates for your first auto remediation because it's like, hey, we can automate that. This one is a well-known, well-approved way. It's always going to be an extra $4,000 a month after, every 6 months of growth, blah, blah, blah. Whereas the wild card, we've never seen this before. I would never recommend somebody get started with auto remediation on the weird stuff they've never seen before. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Okay, cool. I'm following you.
That's a very good point, and I don't think it's really documented here, but exactly what you said. We should kind of offer that idea of how to find what to start with. Whether you're searching your incidents or your requests in ServiceNow or whatever you have, to say, hey, this is the majority of manual labor that we're doing. And, I can eyeball this and say, okay, that's also pretty easy to automate, thinking about what we're doing. So maybe just give some tips on how to get your biggest bang for your buck, kind of thing.
Yeah. And
because I think it's a bit overwhelming sometimes, where let's push for auto remediation. Well, where do I start? So.
Right. And what are those things? Even if you didn't go through tickets or whatever, but you just sit down and talk with an ops engineer, SRE engineer. Hey, what have you guys written little scripts to do because you're so tired of typing in the same shit over and over again? I got a thing that does this every hour. It goes and checks and gets a number and sends me, like, they've already sort of half done it in the Skunkworks IT department. That's a good place to start too. So yeah, but as a section, Johannes, for somebody to say we're going to need in this document, let's flesh out because it's not just you don't just flip a switch on the network router and suddenly it auto remediates things.
Mm.
You don't even know what it's doing. We're suggesting a very different way of experience and getting your mind right about it. So yeah, I like the whole section.
All right, yeah. Then the next section, it's all about testing a remediation process or action, because yeah, we are proposing to do something, but we can't wait till the problem occurs in production. We have to test it somehow, and I think this is a topic that is sometimes overlooked and ignored, but I think we should take care of that and address it to some extent, to give also recommendations how to do that. This ties a little bit into the discussion we had as we talked about the mind map, because
Yeah.
there we said that it should already be part of a releasing process. Uh, yeah, the release process of a software, of a piece of software, should also consider that a remediation action is in place that gets tested along the delivery pipeline, and when it's done in production, I can be sure that also my action was part of a testing environment, so that um, that I'm not lost when the problem occurs.
Yeah. And the whole extension of quality gates being remediation is code, meaning we have a way to describe and automate
Yep.
doing remediation. So yeah, so then if the criteria for, let's say, a user story as an application that has just been handed 4 GB of memory, does the remediation actually work? Even though
Mhm.
we're saying that's the SRE or the ops guys like that's what we do. We don't know if that's the greatest thing in the world, but maybe that's what we do. And so somebody could say, hey, maybe in that getting started guide, we also link back. If you're getting started, hey, do deeper testing on what you're currently manually remediating. Like, well, we throw 4 gig at it, and then what you don't see is 72 hours later or three weeks later, you have another issue. And it actually went back to, well, you gave it 4 more gig and you didn't change, some heap size, or we tuned something inside the app and it doesn't really work at 4 gig, blah, blah, blah. Or we added 8 more gig, but it's not using the 8 more gig, but it did reboot this. There's all sorts of things. So yeah, yep.
I mean, I think
So
we can mention it here in this section that testing is quite of a crucial element when it comes to remediation, but I think it's worth spending a dedicated section about this topic. But at the end, it
Yeah.
turns out, we will see. Kevin,
One more thing to add on that is sort of the compliance approval governance part that we had in the mind map.
uh, is this part of testing?
Well, it's the outcome of testing. You have to sort of show your work. We have tested it in order to have something approved or certified as this is a remediation that is well known, proven. We're gonna adopt it. And we may have trusted partners that say, well, we're just running a vanilla Atlassian Jira stack, and they publish. Here are the published remediations that they have tested. So we could just say, well, we trust the vendor. Let's just adopt their remediations and make them approved in our implementation. So there's kinds of ways that, vendors can share what their fixes are, not like patches or anything, but yeah, actually auto remediating. Hey, we found a vulnerability within Jira, and they publish, hey, if you're using some auto remediation solution, you can just adopt these rules as code and have them ride along right into your implementation in the infrastructure. So, yeah.
Perfect. Kevin, you wanted to say something? I interrupted you.
uh, yeah, you're fine. Yeah, I kind of see it now, but one of the things that you mentioned is how this testing should take care of itself in a way because it's part of a pipeline. And I kind of see the automation as code, but it just kind of got me thinking, do we ever explicitly say that in any section above that this whole process should be part of a pipeline? I don't know if that should be called
Oh,
out somewhere
Yeah, true,
or not.
true.
just making a big presumption that we're in the Keptn world. So it,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we don't have to be in the Keptn world. Uh,
Yeah, right. I think Kevin's,
mhm.
that's his point.
Very good question. Let me add that one. Or maybe the title is just a little bit misleading. Maybe it's not tester remediations. I mean,
Yeah. I think
Validating,
that's
certifying?
fine.
Yeah, it might be
I think that's
certifying.
fine, but it's just kind of that in the beginning, in the theory part, I guess part of the theory is that the auto remediation process is built into your DevOps pipeline. I don't know if that was ever really explicitly kind of
no, not
mentioned.
really. I mean, maybe it could fit into this section or the auto remediation process itself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where we have the process explained, and then maybe as a summary or as let's add it here as a subsection. The process as part of, not sure where it fits here or not.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are talking about the different tasks that make up a process. Not sure about that subject. We should not forget about that. Definitely not. Also
Mm-hmm.
up in the theory, but not sure where to add it.
Yeah. Because I think it's kind of a new concept. As a developer, you're not thinking about this, and so to get that in your mindset in the beginning, I think helps everything flow. And instead of getting through all this and then getting to testing where it says, hey, this should be
Yeah.
part of your pipeline. Oh wait, oops. Now you're telling me.
Yeah, and without that, I mean, can you adopt these ideas and potentially even create a product based on these ideas and flowcharts and models and such? And it can be adopted into a pipeline or not. I mean, like, hey, if your pipeline is not, a lot of people have development in pipelines and then maybe operations is totally separate. If they just haven't gone full board. Cloud native wise,
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing cloud native wise, we're going to be more often than not in that context where we are presuming they do have some automated CD of some kind.
mm, mm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but yeah, great to point it out.
Okay, yeah, we left off here. Testing remediation process for compliance. And then last but not least, we also talked about reusing and sharing remediation actions in the sense of have a template that defines a pattern and someone else can use this template to, for example, implement a restart of a JVM to clean up a disk space and so on. And as we also discussed this topic, there came up the idea of having a hub where remediation actions can be published and someone else can just reuse it as they live and as they work. I think it also makes totally sense. Maybe also to summarize what this paper or what this document provides would be nice, yeah, to have also this idea in the
Yeah,
paper.
Mm-hmm.
making an auto remediation thing thingy
Thingy.
object, making it portable somehow, meaning you could
Mm-hmm.
consume and a weird thing would be I don't have auto remediation, but somebody else does, and I hit a problem. And let's say I buy vendor X, they have their auto remediation tool plugged into my pipeline. It can, if it knows that there's more rules or more uh, remediation code based on vendor, based on, I mean, I know people that do stuff based on MAC address. So they're like, I don't know what machine that is, but I look at the first two bytes of the MAC address and I look up the vendor and then I see what are the patches available. I mean, there's people that automated the searching for that kind of stuff based on hardware drivers, all kinds of stuff. It could be a similar thing, meaning, hey, I noticed this is the type of application I'm working with. I don't have any auto remediation rules, but I could do a query and tell my human, hey, human, there are 3 community remediation rules. Do you want to go review them? Do you want to bring them in and start testing them to see if we can use them? Do you want to just shoot from the hip and apply one of them? So there could be some meta or abstraction here that says an auto remediation engine is aware that there's a whole community of auto remediation people building stuff out in the world. Like nobody built, especially cloud native. You're not running in a data center underneath somebody's desk, locked off in the closet somewhere. You're running with potential access to the community of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a meta thing here that's really cool in this. And then, there's a commercial opportunity to it as well, potentially. People could say, hey, sign up for the premium pack and you have a license to use
Yep.
all these advanced automation, automated remediation. Yeah.
All right. Yep. True. Cool ideas. And yeah, this is actually what I added to the bottom of the document. Not to forget one thing, because we also said that at the end, an example, as we as a group also started working on, should summarize everything. And there, yeah, we want to have the JVM memory exhaustion example
Yep.
that kind of shows the outcome or shows how we think that remediation should be done based on a real example, and should be also the summary of what we came up with.
Yeah. And doing them simultaneously, building out that example will also open our eyes to things before we finalize the document. We'll go back up and flesh it out. So yeah, beautiful.
All right, yeah. Okay, this is what I came up with. This is kind of the index, the table of content, and we now went through the different subsections, and I think we should now jointly work on this document to get it to fill it with content and to make it make a solid outcome, to produce a solid outcome.
Actually, right.
And yeah, we reviewed the list from Louis, and now, yeah, we would be at the point, or we are at the point where we assign us to one, I would say, to one section now, and say that I want to work the next 2 weeks on this section, write what I know, write down what I find out in the internet, or do a research a little bit, and kind of fill in text into those subsections.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, cool.
Jürgen
I was
already told me that he would go with this subsection, testing the remediation process. He would be the chair of that, and he's just looking for a reviewer. But he goes as, yeah, I would go first for this section.
um, I'm already doing a little bit of that research in terms of the block framework or the block flowchart. So I would volunteer to be the section chair for the flowchart part up in theory.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we kind of get some stuff working there, I'm off. I can also do some reviewer stuff. I could do a reviewer in the test remediation process for Jurgen.
For Jürgen.
And in the next 2 weeks, I can get kind of the research underway and start a document for the flowchart. And then whatever, be there for Jurgen and stuff. I've been busy in the last little bit, but things are loosening up now. So I should have some bandwidth over the next 2 weeks to make some headway.
Cool. Great. Um, Kevin, I will give you the chance to speak up. And
Yeah, sure. I can take on the auto remediation process above it, and then I could review the flowchart.
Cool. And that'll get the ball rolling for sure.
Mm-hmm.
okay, then This one we moved into the prerequisites. Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. Here, delete the row. Oops, not the table. Each row, and then I will go with that one. I will just ask Jürgen. Well, now I will go as a reviewer for this section, as I'm also interested in that one. And then I have to ask Jürgen for that. Well, cool. I think this way we get the ball rolling, so that we make progress and then make also outcome.
Cool.
Perfect. Then section chair and the reviewer. And okay, yeah. Next bullet item is we should talk about a timeline for writing on the section and also for doing the review then. I'm honest and fair, and I will be on vacation. And I'm honest, I have to say that I'm on vacation in 2 weeks for 1 week, and I can or will work on next week a little bit on the document, but will not finish it in 2 weeks. This is, I think, what I can say today.
Sure. So we'll loop back with Jurgen then in 2 weeks.
And Jürgen is also not here. The same is true for Jürgen. He's also
All right.
on vacation.
Yeah, so let's find a way to at least sync up back on the Slack channel. And I'll say I'll have some stuff. Kevin, I'll shoot you something there to review whatever I find in terms of these frameworks and an idea. I'll start another Google Doc for that in our folder to do it.
Okay. I need to get, let me see, how can I get on that? And Johannes, can you invite me to the Slack channel using my personal email? So our network blocks external Slack access, so I can't get to it using my work email address. But I could use my home computer, and so I've never been on the Slack channel yet because of that.
Okay, no problem.
So,
Kevin, can you send me your email?
Yeah, I'll
Via
send it to
email. Let me just.
Yep.
Mine is Johannes. You already sent me an email, and you have mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I will add you to the Slack channel.
Okay.
But still, should we add a date, a due date, until that we have at least a draft of our section or first paragraphs?
Yeah, I think draft would be 2 weeks from now. Yeah.
Let's focus on a draft for in 2 weeks. Yeah, due date.
Yeah. Which means you have something with enough meat or enough substance that a reviewer can actually take it in and provide some direction. I think that's a good idea.
Perfect. And I think, and then in the following meetings, we just take content and also can then talk a little bit about the reviewer will leave a comment, and I think we can use then the meetings to discuss certain things and to shape it and to bring it in a format that everyone would like to have it.
Yeah.
But
I, for one, first of all, I gave you a shout out on the Slack channel, Johannes, and getting some pathway for us here I really appreciate it. Since my time changes in probably the next month, I'll be good. A lot of people take off for the summer, as you would vacation. I'm gonna block Wednesday for this every Wednesday, so I'll do some stuff weekly and get my cadence going. And that'd be fine.
oh, great. Yeah. Same from my side. I have also a blocker on Wednesday to do to work on that. All right, the due date, a draft of
the section. Yep.
in 2 weeks. Let me highlight it with a yellow.
Groovy.
All right, and yeah, as I said, or the next item would then be the next meeting we should schedule. I'm on vacation and Jürgen will be too, meaning that we can't participate. And the Zoom link is also closed.
Right.
How should we handle that? Should we skip the next meeting in 2 weeks and just stay in touch via Slack, and we meet then on 14th of July?
That works for me.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have something like back to Kevin definitely in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but the next meeting will then be in July, 14th of July.
Yeah. I think also, Johannes, I would just earmark maybe Kevin and I spending time in that theory section. Maybe we loop back up to sort of the use cases context. If we get through these next 2 weeks and then like, all right, start expanding the theory section a little bit more.
Perfect. Yeah. Feel free. It's our document. When some ideas pump in your head, then please feel free to add them wherever you think they fit into.
Yeah.
All right. And okay, we defined the next meeting. And yeah, last but not least, but I think it's also an important point that Kevin brought up at the beginning, recruiting to get this group also a little bit, to get it growing. How can or should we tackle that one? Should we just say everybody invites one other person, meaning that in the next meeting we then have actually doubled the size of this group?
I would maybe reach out to JP or some of the other Dynatrace consultants that are involved in the automated cloud enablement process, that are talking with other businesses, that are helping them get established. They may want to get involved, as soon as after they're get some of their own automation put in place. They may have some good lessons learned that they can contribute to this. So, JP might be a good resource to see if he could help recruit.
For recruiting, JP is sometimes joining the group. Last time he did. But should we ask him to recruit other people for that meeting?
Yeah, I mean, if he feels comfortable doing so. I think because he would have connections with other institutions that are instrumenting auto-remediation through the ACE process. So I don't know, seems like he would have a few different names on the list. I mean, we could obviously bring people from our own company, which would help, but I think the more different companies and industries, you'll get different technologies, you'll just get a bunch of different ideas, the wider your net is.
Yeah, for me, I just I have the Perfbytes community from the podcasting world and also other folks that we follow. So I'll reach out to some specific individuals and see who I think might be good. So yeah, I'll put the word out.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. What I can do, I don't want to bring in too much Dynatrace folks because yeah, Luis and JP and also Andy, they joined last time, and I think they will show up and come by also in the future. But I think, or I will do an outreach from to the Keptn community, as we also have users there that are using remediation or start to use remediation. they are from different companies, and I think getting their ideas and their motivation why they are doing that might also help. Then I'll take it
Yeah.
on my agenda. Outreach.
I'm also seeing even like today, you know, Jurgen's got a whole bunch of new folks welcomed into the community, and I just posted in the general channel there or the thing as well. Hey, we're, you know, so yeah, we'll get the word out. Yeah, I'm with you.
And I can take it also on my agenda to ask JP. Oh, crazy. Cool. Perfect. I think it was a very productive meeting today. And we have.
Yeah. And if we will not see you in 2 weeks potentially, then Kevin, we'll just we'll be sending stuff back and forth. We can Slack if we need to there.
Sounds good.
Perfect. I just added to, don't forget it. I will add you to Slack, Kevin. No
Okay.
problem.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Johannes,
Perfect.
thank you.
Cool. Thanks a lot for joining in, and looking forward to see you next time, and also to see how the document grows and we get to a cool result.
Yeah, love it. Awesome.
Perfect.
Cheers.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
All right.